You can see I've got this old extension cord that's a little bit melted on the end. If we plug in this Dremel tool, you can see it doesn't work. So rather than going out and buying a new end and attaching it on, what we could do is hook up the end to an outlet like this, and then we can actually get two plugs out of the end instead of just one. Because these can handle 20 amps, you're not going to have to replace the end like this. It's not going to melt and deform like this. Before we get started, let's unplug so we don't hurt ourselves. So we'll just clip it off. About here should be fine. Now as we strip off this outer housing, we just want to be careful that we don't nick the insulation of the inner three wires. I'm going to use a knife for this. Figure out about how much you need. This should be good. So you just very carefully cut around this outer housing without damaging the inner wires at all, and pull it off. Here we have a connector for armored or BX cable, and this fits perfectly around the insulation here. So we'll just go ahead and put this on there. So we'll go ahead and unravel this. This nylon twine in here is actually for strength, so that as you're pulling your extension cord, the tension goes on this instead of on your wires. But we don't need it for the end connector. And we're going to be wrapping this wire in a loop around these screws. So we just, when we strip this, we want to make sure we have enough for a loop. This should be pretty good. We'll go ahead and strip these off. So we're gonna take these and just twist them together first. Now when these go onto the screws, we want the loop on the wire to go in the same direction as we tighten the screw. So I'm gonna use this little hole on my wire strippers here to bend into a loop that goes clockwise. The way I remember these colors is that the silver is closest to white, black is closest to gold, and then green is green. So I'm going to put this on here, and then I'm going to use this to just tighten it up a little bit around the screw. And you want to make sure that the wire stripping doesn't extend out past the back of the outlet, just to make sure it doesn't electrocute things. And we'll tighten that in. Same thing for the others. Oh, this one I put on backwards. I need to make sure that it goes clockwise so that the screw will tighten it into place. It's a little trickier to get these guys in since it's not the single copper core and we got the multiple strands in there. And then what some people don't know is that these outlet screws are actually designed for a square bit. You'll get a lot more torque on those if you use the square bit. And then for the other screws that we're not using, we just want to tighten those down. When you get to the last green wire, this is the ground. If you're in a plastic box, then you can go ahead and just hook this green up to the green screw and call it a day. But if you're using a metal box, then you're going to want to, in addition to hooking the green up to the green screw, take another wire and attach it here to the back of the metal box. And that is required by code, but the reason is that if one of these other wires comes off, or if a wire gets in there and touches the side of the metal box, then it's gonna have some sort of power or a short, and if you touch it, you'll get shocked, or something else could get shocked. But if you have the ground from the wire hooked up to the outlet and to the box, then your breaker can tell that there's a short, and it can pop the breaker instead of letting someone get hurt. In order to get this outlet into the box, I'm going to have to disconnect these so that we can push the wires in the box, and then put this ring onto the wires, and then we can wire it back up. So to get these out, on the plastic ones, you can usually just hit it and it snaps right out. And then on the metal ones, you see it's mostly connected here on the one side, so you'll just want to hit it on the opposite side and bend it back and forth until it comes off. We'll put this in here and then use the nut to tighten it on and lock it in place. In order to get this torqued on there are these little wings coming off of them, so you can use the flathead screwdriver and just tap it. For now, we can push this through to give ourselves a little more room to work, and then at the end we'll epoxy it in place to make it really strong. Now that we've got these wires all tightened down, we'll put some electrical tape on here just to make sure that nothing touches each other. And we typically put on about 2 or 3 wraps of tape just to make sure that everything holds well. Alright, so we'll just put some epoxy in there. Once we have the epoxy in, we'll pull the wire back and just kind of twist it around in there a little bit to get it spread out. So this is the BX cable nipple that we used over here, and it fits perfectly with our extension cord wire. But the more conventional way would be to use one of these clamps. I just decided to use this instead because these screws are always getting caught on things and this just looks a lot cleaner. Typically, if you were putting this into drywall, you would have these ears on there to screw in, but since we're just putting this into a plastic box, it's all by itself, we're just gonna break these off, and you can see that there's actually already a little notch in there just for the shape. Alright, so just push this down in there and screw it together. So I'm going to take a metal box cover to put it on, just because I don't like the edges that the regular plastic one gives. It'll just catch on everything, so we'll put this guy on here. Now with it plugged in, we'll give it a test. So this thing broke, and we put on an outlet here, and now I've got two really good quality outlets on here, so I'd call this an upgrade. If you found this helpful, please give us a thumbs up. Thanks.